Right. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm so glad to be with you all and sharing this talk as a launch pad, as I like to call it, of our collective reflection. Thank you for being here during this weekend where a lot of obligation may or may not call you. I'm happy to be here. So I titled the talk as Shedding Light on Marginalized Pain, and you'll notice that I have PowerPoint, but please note that we look at screens a lot during our days and lives. You don't have to look at those screens. I'll be reading most of the stuff out loud as I am diagnosed to have ADHD. I'm trying not to go all over the place. The PowerPoint is mostly likely for me, but there are a few moments that I would be asking you to bring your attention to the screen if you're called to. So nice to meet you. I'm the Center Director of Dallas Meditation Center. Super honored to be serving that role. But I wanted to also introduce Dallas Meditation Center to those who are not as familiar with where we are coming from. So our core gathering formats are inspired by Plum Village tradition, which is international movement. And Thich Nhat Hanh is the founder of the Plum Village tradition. And you'll see a gentleman's photo on the left for that altar or all over the place. This is Brother Chisting, the founder of Dallas Meditation Center. And I like to refer to him because his vision continues to be important to us, even though he passed on in 2016. His vision was to bring mindfulness and meditation practice to people of all faith and non-faith backgrounds in an earth-based way, which meant emphasis on creativity, music, and arts. So creativity and making art is an important part of our center culture. You will see interfaith flag above the door that you just entered. So to emphasize our inclusivity mission. And you'll see pride flag, and in your program, all this opening affirmation and so on. We try to make space for that. Generosity, creativity, inclusivity. So what to expect tonight? This talk probably will extend beyond our usual 20 minutes, so please pardon me. I do my best to give a talk and then have a group discussion, but there's some pressing issue that I wanted to articulate and just wanted to give you a heads up. In the spirit of respecting anybody's agency, which is important to Dallas Meditation Center as a safe and brave space, if you don't resonate with my talk, please feel free to take care of yourself in any way you feel. That might look like leaving early or taking a breather in the lobby, kitchen, back room. We don't believe in consistent, agreed upon politeness. Here, please take permission to take care of yourself. Laying down is a great way. So yeah, I just wanted to say that out loud. So it'll be kind of an outline of me describing intention for my talk. And I'll be inviting in some interfaith and secular friendly reflection. And I'll also, let's see, let me collapse this. And my intention for bringing in some of the images are to have a kind of a metaphor that we can reflect on to invite in our compassion and awareness for the sorrow and suffering that is unfolding in this world. I'll be touching on the Korean concept, Zen concept of pakyeok, which is convention breaking, which is part of the mindfulness practice, believe it or not. So yeah. And there'll be some share in the spirit of pakyeok. I'll be bringing in some of aspects of my life that is relevant to the talk of becoming aware of the pain in the world. And I'll be inviting a piece of art as a teacher. Any Wes Anderson fan? Yeah, I saw you smile, so I was wondering. His Grand Budapest Hotel captures the process that I'll be inviting in. I'm seeing some hands up. And I will invite you to go through the process of shedding light on marginalized pain practice. You don't have to know what that means just yet. I'll get to that. And we'll have a collective reflection and discussion in the spirit of connecting with one another and with ourselves. So that's a general outline. And again, although my talk is the first part of this portion of the gathering, My intention is to open the doors for deep conversation with my talk. And we often call talks Dharma talk in this space, although because I am consider myself to be informed by Buddhism, Christianity, and many traditions, so I call my talk just talk. But traditionally, Dharma talks involve the lived experience of the speakers, not just concepts, which is why I'll be bringing in some of my unusual aspects of myself. And here I also wanted to send acknowledgement and appreciation for my spiritual advisor and Buddhist chaplain, Scott, who said, core tenet of any true spirituality is acknowledging and relieving the suffering of the world. And I wondered how, and my answer was to create a space to safely reflect and connect to difficult questions. Yeah, I'm kind of repeating myself here, just that you feel free to engage however you'd like, because critical thinking and free-spiritedness is what we really promote here. See how it lands or doesn't land for you. So I like to describe where I'm coming from when I write talks, because if I'm suddenly like throwing it out right at you, like it's hard to be like, wait, why were you talking about this? So I wrote this talk from the observations I was making in my life, how overwhelming the current news cycles can be, and how all the conversations that I'm plugged in are separated, compartmentalized. And it's easy for people to feel distant from news of the world suffering unless one's plugged into community. But all the community conversations were happening in its own space. So I served as a translator for many years. And using that experience, my hope is to bridge different languages, different spaces, different worlds, including different communities that are talking about the suffering of the world in a different way, and bridging that to the space of mindfulness. And I hope I can show all the worlds that I'm straddling and listening on. And I'd love to share all of those in a way that can fit in before the end of the day. So as I've mentioned, I'll be briefly touching on the concept of pakyak in Korean Zen Buddhism. That refers to breaking or transcending established forms, structures, and convention. It's about exceeding limitations and expressing authentic understanding and realization through non-traditional methods. This concept is actually pretty core Zen Buddhist idea, although in westernized discussion of Buddhism, we don't talk about it as much, except there's a certain movement that was attempting that, but it, my opinion, went in a direction that I didn't resonate with, so I wanted to share here. So the idea is that direct experience, personal experience, is part of learning rather than strict adherence to rules or intellectual knowledge as a vehicle of awakening. Yeah. So speaking of direct experience, I'm about to invite in some images for us to meditate on. However, this is a space that carries a lot of religious trauma. People that I've met here, many have confided with me their difficult experience with hierarchical religious institutions. That's how I landed here too. So I wanted to acknowledge this out loud. And image that I'll be bringing in is coming from Catholic tradition. So I have been wounded by a specific Christian tradition in Korea. I do not carry personal wounding from Buddhism or Catholic tradition. So maybe the image that I'm about to share lands for me because of that. So I just wanted to clarify that. What that means is that you can feel free to ignore my invitation to look at the image and reflect on it. If you come from Catholic tradition that wounded you and it doesn't resonate with you anymore, please don't feel like you have to participate in this. And there's a quick discussion that I wanted to add, that when we keep saying the word interfaith, what I'm trying to convey is the idea of different religious traditions can work together in effective collaborations on moral issues facing our world today as one big team. This is from TED Talk by Rabbi Ted Falcon, Pastor Don McKinsey, and Imam Jamal Rahman. I give a lot of build up. Sorry if this is too much. There's so much meaning in each word, so I wanted to get in there. So the invitation that's about to happen is to meditate on, and actually meditation using image as a meditation object. And what that means is that when we put our attention onto certain image, art, or candlelights or breath, it has a certain effect on you. As an artist, I believe in power of attention and its interaction with meditation object, and how our consciousness interacts with meditation object to shed light on the area of psyche that we might not be able to travel to. So in hopes that the image helps us to get to the space of compassion, feeling the pain of the world, I bring in this image. So this, yeah, I'm gonna skip that disclaimer. So this is an image of Our Lady of Sorrows in Spain. Although it's Mother's Day, or the day that we celebrate nurturing spirit, that often, is on a happy notes as, we enjoy happiness. But the mother image that I'm inviting in today is this image. Her heart pierced by swords, her eyes looking up.
Is it okay if I come closer because I can't see?
Please, come on. Yeah,
me too.
thanks for asking. Yeah, the screen is not as big as I would like it to be. Good call. And I'm myself am wearing a t-shirt of tarot cards of Three of Hearts that is also pierced by sword. Because sometimes some news are heartbreaking. And I find myself sometimes having a hard time engaging. But can we invite in that compassion, perhaps sorrow, with the help of this image? Perhaps let's take 3 deep breaths looking at this image. If you would like, you don't have to. The spirit of what it means to shed light on marginalized pain, I bring this image to you. I'll bring in another image that is my personal photo of Kwanum Bothan, also called Avalokiteshvara in many contexts. And this is a being that listens deeply to hear the hidden pains of all beings. And he typically has big ears. Actually, it's gender neutral being, and the one in the center is the one I'm referring to. And let's take perhaps 5 breaths. What would it be like if there was a being that listens in so deeply that they know all the pain in the world? Thank you for that. So in particular, the pain, I'll be talking about the various type of pains, but the pain that I wanted to make space for is people who are experiencing racism and fear of losing their immigration status. And a lot of them are Spanish speaking. So the first Mary that you saw is often called Nuestra Señora de los Dolores. And there's a specific prayer that is simple and to me easy to resonate. And Adan, who is a Spanish native speaker and also immigrant himself, has kindly offered to read the Spanish version of the prayer. If you're comfortable with Spanish, please feel free to read this. After that, I will be reading the English translation that Adan made for us to join in. If you don't want to participate, that's also fine. Whenever you're ready, Adan, could you read, take a lead on the Spanish reading?
Yes, ma'am. Vos, oh Madre, fuente de amor, desde el cielo toca mi espíritu y haz mi corazón de acuerdo al tuyo.
Thank you, Adan. And this is the English translation that Adan provided us. Thank you, Adan. You, O Mother, source of love, from the heavens touch my spirit and make my heart identical to yours. Just interesting considering that her heart is pierced right now. What does it mean to make my heart identical to yours? The piercing is often thought to be the heart opening. 7 swords represents Mary's suffering, but those are the sufferings that allowed her to open her heart to carry the love for the world. So it's a trial, but it's also, this prayer invites in these trials, difficulties of opening heart to the sorrow of the world. And my response to the sorrow is social activism. And although I say pagyok as though this is new, it's not. Thich Nhat Hanh, whom I just mentioned, who's on the right side of the altar, he lived social activism. You will see his picture with Martin Luther King Jr., who was actual personal friend of his. And the idea of right action, sama kamanto, I think that's how you say it. I'm not good with Sanskrit. Is part of long tradition of Buddhist tradition. So I'll be talking about social activism a little bit, but given the common political climate and the fact that I'm an immigrant with my citizenship application still pending, I'm gonna ask Paul to pause the recording briefly if you wanna. So this videos get uploaded to YouTube, so people might be like, what just happened? Another pakyak, breaking a convention that I'm sharing here is celebration of creativity based on my experience. So I, in a punk rock band that sings about injustice, and that is important part of my mindfulness practice. This is me wearing a t-shirt from International Rescue Committee. And I think of embodying the anger and sorrow of the world as part of the mindfulness practice, because it's easy to lean into numbing out based on my experience or feeling helpless, not knowing what to do. So can we connect to the difficulty of the world in whatever way that you can, whether that be music, whether that be mindfulness, whether that be social activism, or just being kind to your neighbor. And I'm happy to report that we have a lot of kindred spirit. BIPOC ecstatic dance leader Stephanie once shared. Dance and resilient joy is our resistance. And I really enjoyed that chanting. So again, why am I sharing this? I'm hoping that this opens the space, that this is not just a space to come to and relax, although those are important. This is a space where we explore creativity as right action, creativity as authentic self-observational tool, and channel for connection with ourselves and kindred spirit, and also emotional processing. And please know that the space welcomes in all spectrum of emotions that is part of mindfulness. We are not happy vibes only spirituality. I've encountered some of those in my life. True mindfulness befriends all spectrums of emotions, including anger, sorrow, confusion, and more. And we all need safe space, brave space to experience this together safely, not alone, reading overwhelming news or hearing difficult news from your personal world, but to come together mindfully, safely, and bravely. And in the courage we gain from community gives us spaciousness to face it, face and have the clarity of right action. That's what I believe, at least. The challenge for everyone here is, can you bring various aspects and interests of yours into compassion practice? What would that look like? I'm working on that myself, so just an invitation/challenge. Going back to the title, Shedding Light on Marginalized Pain. So what does that mean, shedding light on marginalized pain? Although I could go on and on, just talking, describing, breaking down the concepts as a former academic. Actually, art can be a great teacher, an easy way to enter the concept. So let me share my reflection on the movie that helps me articulate what I mean by shedding light on marginalized pain. The Grand Budapest Hotel, 2014 work captures the process that I'm exploring. So I don't know if you remember the character Zero. He shows up as a guy wearing a hat that says lobby boy. And the viewer only meets him as this mysterious, quiet guy, an employee of the hotel wearing a comical hat, lobby boy. Everybody's nagging him to help out with whatever they might be navigating. But the movie does a real good job of slowly revealing more stories behind him, his life. Turns out he grew up in a war-torn country. I mean, if you were to just look at him wearing a hat that says lobby boy, could we have guessed that? Turns out his father was murdered and the rest of his family was executed by firing squads, and survivors were forced to flee, which is why Zero is where he is. To realize that this history of his, if you look at the photo of lobby boy again, there's absurdity of, okay, we assigned him the role of lobby boy, but he carries so much pain. The movie does a great job of making it visible, his pain over time. And there's this very precarious scene where they're trying to cross the border, closed down by fascists, and somebody decides that Zero's paperwork was not sufficient, and everybody tries to arrest him and his employer. And the vulnerability has always been there, but this is the only moment that it becomes truly evident. And the beauty of this movie is that it shows that what helps Zero to share more than his role as a lobby boy is that it was through the trusted personal friendship of his employer, who was kinder than uncaring employer. And somebody that he fell in love with. No, it was somebody might have gone missing. It's through the love and intimacy that Zero can break out of the assigned role of lobby boy, and to reveal more of himself. So that's what I mean by shedding the light on marginalized pain. Through the care, more through the compassion, more pain in ourselves, one another, and different communities become visible and relatable. And the benefits of shedding light is that it's coming from my personal experience. Only when I recognize the marginalized pain in myself, I learned how to authentically relate them to everybody's pain, instead of considering this as a abstract concept of difficulty somebody's going through.
and I could really access the deep compassion. And acknowledging that the mainstream cultural force that is capitalism and other political agendas, they do not make space for these pains to be part of the open conversation. So this is my attempt at relieving the suffering by making space for reflection and share. And when we all acknowledge certain level of vulnerabilities, marginalized pain within ourselves, our team grows bigger. What I mean by that is that we all have certain area that doesn't quite fit in, doesn't feel quite received, cared for. To realize that there's a point of connection for one another, rather than something we need to hide, something that is not relevant. There's a possibility of bonding, connection, friendship. And also, so I will be in that mode. I'll be doing the process of what I mean by shed light on marginalized pain, so that you can think of that as a model before breaking into small group. And the phrase that I'm inviting in is fly your freak flag. As I don't share this aspect of my life much, especially not here. So you may have met me as Lobby Boy, now the director of Dallas Meditation Center. But I'm also bisexual, queer, cisgendered woman who's in her fertile window and is in need of consistent reproductive health care. What's going on out in the world marginalizes me. There's pain in that if I were to share this. I was a Columbia from Rocky Horror Picture Show. So those are from that time. You may have met me as center director. I'm also an immigrant whose citizenship application might be at stake if I don't navigate this cleverly. And this image is from a news article. There's a rush in Illinois also for citizenship applications just bottlenecking. Although you may see that I am serving this role of center director, I'm also a person with invisible disability. I'm diagnosed to have ADHD and my therapist suspects CPTSD. And the image you see on the left is disability pride flag that lists various disability that may or may not be visible and how that space needs to be made. And I'll make a few acknowledgements of my privilege, not in the spirit of dismissing what I shared, but in the spirit of making space for other marginalized pain to be spoken. I'm not an immigrant with cultural or religious heritage or race under scrutiny and extra racist, religious, cultural discrimination. I'm not in financial distress thanks to my partnership in which my partner is the breadwinner. I am of younger age and generally healthy, in that I'm safe from certain oppression, certain injustice, and I wanted to make space for that discussion as well. And the rallying call that I wanted to end before moving on to small group discussion is all the marginalized on the earth unite. So this image you see is a book that I worked on as a research assistant at the University of Notre Dame. There's a small press that publishes wild books. And this book is a translation of feminist poet Kim Hye-sun. And she titled the book, All the Garbage of the World Unite. 전 세계의 쓰레기여 단결하라. In my reading, she uses the word garbage, 쓰레기, to refer to the misfits of the world that are not fitting into the mainstream system that is not supported enough. So this is my rallying cry, all the garbage of the world unite. All the misfits of the world unite by acknowledging our pain. So I'll be listing some questions that might help this reflection for yourselves. And if you're participating, small group discussion. So you don't have to stick to these questions, and I'll be showing all the questions in the slides after listing a few optional questions. Again, participation is optional, meaning we can step out to take a breather, you can go home, however you see fit. Question, how are you feeling doing navigating this world with everything unfolding? How do you feel when you hear news about people's rights being infringed right now? No wrong answers. Numbness is an answer. Anger is an answer. I guess earlier question also, like avoiding news. I have to manage my news consumption. There are various answers. And this is in the spirit of supporting each other by sharing their toolkit. How do you soothe your difficult feelings? And how effective has it been? Again, no wrong answer. Disengaging, deep breathing, meditating, screaming into the pillow. And first, letting yourself have certain level of realistic optimism so that you can be spacious. Where do you see current potential vulnerability in you or your loved ones or people who are in your life? As I shared earlier, for me, reproductive health care, immigration, immigrant rights, religious discriminations are something that is on my radar as my vulnerability. Lastly, what can you do to pivot to make your current life to support your and your loved ones and people in your life's vulnerability? The reason I want the space to be more trauma sensitive, the reason I pivoted my formerly cover band into punk band, those are my way of not starting all over again, creating a whole new method, my way of trying my best. So those are a few optional questions, and the invitation here is to break into 3 or 4, group of 3 or 4 for 10 minutes-ish conversation. But know that this is optional. If you are not comfortable talking with strangers, feel free to look away. If you don't make eye contact, people get it, or however you'd like. But just in a real casual way, look around, see who's willing to make a small group. And Paul, I'll be happy to wait. Well, what's the best way of doing the Zoom people? Just make us perfect. All right. So now pause the recording if you could, Paul. Yeah, let's see how this video turns out. So my closing thought is invitation to infuse the spirit of care for all suffering in the world as we are about to go into closing chant. As it goes, countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless affliction we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest path of awakening we vow to realize. And perhaps the path is first allowing ourselves to feel within the safety, feel that there's pain in this world. So thank you so much for being part of this gathering. Your presence and your share is adding to the well of collective wisdom of our community and Sangha. And may we notice the marginalized pain in ourselves and one another. So we may go as a river, as the calligraphy over there says too. We can be promoting peace as one organism, taking the right action, emboldened